Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Javaid Butt, and in this video, I will be discussing my publication where I proposed a strategic roadmap for the manufacturing industry to implement Industry 4.0.
This is deeply rooted in Lean Six Sigma methodologies. I mean, the reason I use Six Sigma is because, as I said, it will mitigate some of that resistance towards change because manufacturing organizations have been using Lean Six Sigma protocols for decades now. So what I did was I made use of the DFSS, which is known as the Design for Six Sigma approach. And within that approach, this is typically used when one wants to go for developing a new system or a new product flow. So for that, I identified several steps: define, measure, evaluate, optimize, develop, validate, implement, and then obviously having a continuous improvement cycle using DMAIC, again, another aspect of Six Sigma. And this should lead you to digitization of your company. So let's have a look at these different aspects in more detail. So in the define stage, what you need to do is you need to define what is it that you are trying to do. And it can very simply be a business problem. It could be that, well, my business problem is I am not producing enough output. How can I mitigate that? And then you need to align that with the organizational strategies. The reason you should do that is because, as I said, resistance to change is something that you will face all throughout, especially considering the fact that in the manufacturing sector, especially in small and medium enterprises, there haven't been that much of a revolution anyways. We are still working with the same old system that we worked with 10, 20 years ago. So it is very, very crucial to make sure that the resistance to change can be minimized as much as possible. And this is not just to mitigate that aspect, it is a very useful aspect to incorporate where you align your goal with the digital transformation with the organizational strategies to make sure that you have the support of the entire organization. The next thing that you should do is establish an appropriate team. And this team should not just comprise the senior management, but people from different departments, people who actually work on the shop floor so that you can get the insight into how things are done. Then based on the strategies of Industry 4.0 that you are looking into incorporate, again, look at your customers. It could be one thing that you want to incorporate Industry 4.0 because this is the new thing in the market and you should go by the trend, but focus on your customers. Do your customers want it? Will your customers be able to adjust to the new changes, to everything digital? Imagine the customer who was always happy to see a human face come to them and deliver them their goods or a receipt that they can hold in their hand because they feel better with that. Imagine giving them everything digital, you doing a virtual call with them like I'm doing with you right now, or you simply popping up on a computer screen with them, you sending them all the receipts digitally. Will they be competent enough to work with all of that? These are some of the things that you might need to be mindful of. It is very easy to get lost in all of this Industry 4.0 technology aspect, but it is always important to be mindful of what your customer want at the end of the day, because they are the ones who are making your business run. And then obviously based on how you want to go about that and to what extent you want to incorporate Industry 4.0, you might want to modify your marketing strategy. I mean, going digital means that your marketing people would have to do quite a lot of work in making sure that the changes are seen by everybody out there. The human resource strategy, again, going back to people, managing their expectations, upskilling them, or even getting new people that have the required skills. IT maturity strategy, going digital requires a lot of IT resources. Do you have access to them, or do you intend to spend resources to get them? That is something that you need to identify. Smart manufacturing strategy, smart supply chain management strategy. If you intend to incorporate horizontal and vertical integration, this is something that you should be looking at developing anyways. So based on whatever your aspirations are, whatever your goal is, whatever small or big aspect you intend to incorporate, I mean, personally suggest start off small and then see how things turn out, and then slowly and gradually build up, because it is not as straightforward as taking something out of a box and just simply plugging it into a socket and voila, we have some stuff. It is a very complicated and a tiresome journey that organizations will have to take, and it should start with baby steps and then move on to much more comprehensive transformations. And of course, we need a change management strategy, because without that, this whole thing could very easily fall apart. So having a clear idea of what it is that we want to do, how does it fit with our organizational strategies, and what is the plan? How do we go about that, and what is the time frame? I mean, there's no point just keep doing it until we get it right. You need to specify a time frame, and you need to stick by it. That is very critical in your defining stage. So when you move on to the measure stage, this is the point where a lot of different aspects come into play, especially considering of what your goals are. You might want to look at those goals, and you might want to collect data that, okay, this is currently what our practices are. If they go up by 10%, what does that mean for us? If they go by 5%, what does that mean for us? You need to identify performance metrics. You need to identify key performance indicators, measure how your system is currently running, do cost benefit analysis, as I have already shown you before. You also might want to use some readiness assessment tools, again, that I have shown you before. If you are working with a product, you might also want to do a quality function deployment that can change or transform the voice of your customers, both internal and external, into product characteristics. So, I mean, you might be interested in developing a smart product that you can look into. So all of these things need to be measured, and this is exactly why I explained to you the benefits realization aspect, so that you can understand how do you need to measure and what do you need to measure in order for you to have data that can inform your decision making process. Then when it comes time to evaluation, the first thing obviously you would have to do is benchmark yourself. Where do you stand? And that benchmarking can be done through the readiness assessment tools. Again, I mean, it would take you 5 to 10 minutes to complete one test, and then you can also look at your quality frequency domain. Based on that, you can generate some concepts that, okay, if this is a production flow right now, what if we change it to X? So you can have a process that already exists. You can create different designs for that, and I'm pretty certain a lot of us manufacturers do that. When I was working in the industry, we did that quite a lot, just to make sure that we get the best results out of our system. And sometimes we would focus all of our resources towards one specific product, because according to our plan, we need to get that. Or for example, we received a lot more raw material on that product as opposed to the other product. So we couldn't make as much of the other, but we can make a lot of one type. So these are sort of things that we do on a regular basis anyway. So now you need to look at it in a much more holistic manner and establish some different alternative designs. If it is for a production flow, if it is a product, you need to look at these different aspects. Now, once you have developed these different aspects, these different concept designs, you might need to then narrow them down, because obviously if you talk with somebody on the production floor, that person will give you a specific design. If you talk with somebody in the maintenance department, they will give you a specific design. Not to say that they are looking at easing their workload, but it also goes to show how people look at different aspects. So it is important to have that balanced team, as I mentioned in the define phase, so that you can get the opinions of different people for different aspects. One useful tool is known as the Pew Matrix. I mean, it allows you to basically put everything side by side, look at the positives, look at the negatives, and whatever gets quantified the higher, you can utilize that to be your final design. So after the evaluate stage, you might want to move towards the optimize stage. Now, the optimize stage should involve building CAD packages and developing full-scale models of whatever it is that you want to work with. If it is a product or it is a production flow, simulations is a very useful tool to use. And this is why I spent some time showing you some videos of simulation, both of product and production flow. So that will all allow you to optimize your system. You might also want to incorporate some lean management principles, identify some conforming standards that are beneficial to you. It could be your state standards, it could be government standards according to whatever product or process you are running. So all of these things need to be incorporated in the optimize phase to make sure that whatever you are doing will give you the best results at the least amount of resources used. So after optimize, obviously, when you have had a design, you might want to develop that, and that development should always start with a prototype. I mean, it is a good practice to mitigate the risk through prototype development. So you acquire the appropriate resources and skilled personnel who will help you in that development stage, identify the most economic method, and then build a prototype to validate the simulations. Then when you are validating it, you will run the prototype, you will run pilot studies, and in the prototype stage, you might want to run more than a few iterations or more than a few different conditions on your system, just to make sure that you can get the system up and running in quick succession without any problems. So this will first and foremost validate your simulations. And at this stage, you need to look at your define phase to make sure that what you have done is actually in line with your define phase, with the strategies that you had defined earlier, and you collect data for comparison. And upon comparison, you would be able to see and even show your customers, both internal and external, as to how this transformation has worked for you. And this is the stage after the prototype testing when you need to decide whether you want to scale up this design or not. The scaling up means that this would be a full-scale implementation now. It is completely your decision. As I said, you might just want to run the prototype on the side, and you might want to monitor it for a while, and that is absolutely fine. It is, again, your decision because you are the one running the business. You understand it better. The technology side can be understood by an external expert, but you understand your business better, and you need to be able to put your foot down when it comes to such decisions. You don't need to rush into this. You need to plan for this. And this is why developing a transition implementation plan should be the next thing on your agenda. You should be the one leading that charge. You should be the one developing that plan, how you will upscale this, how you will go about even just having prototypes over prototypes for your development until you are ready to integrate everything together. It is always good practice, obviously, to document operating procedures so that you can very easily change them in the future. So when it comes time to implementation, obviously, if you have decided and you are ready to implement it, you need to establish a steering board for digital implementation. I mean, not a necessity, but it is a good thing because it will allow the people who have been working on this for quite some time to step away for a while and to observe the situation as a whole. And now you have a new set of people who can bring in more expertise. Obviously, training some digital transition champions would be good, and they should be from the original team that started this whole process, because those should be the one who should be leading the charge for this with the support of the steering board. Then you can go for a full-scale pilot run. Again, you will define your transformation. You will define the aspect that now you are in line with the defined phase. You have implemented what you set out to do. And if that is something that is in line with your goals, it is something that you wanted to achieve and you have now achieved it upon comparison and data collection, you can see that. Then you document your operating procedures and you standardize them. And this would be something that you can utilize for as long as you are running. Even if you want to make changes, you can very easily do that. as time go by. So towards the end, I mean, after you have implemented everything, it is always a good practice to continuously monitor your process, to continuously look for opportunities for improvement. I mean, from the Six Sigma side, DMAIC, the define, measure, analyze, improve, and control, is a very useful tool that you can utilize. Another cycle that you can use is known as the PDCA, Deming Cycle, Plan, Do, Check, Act. You can utilize, I mean, either one of them, and they are both quite structured, obviously depending upon, as I said, how much resources you want to incorporate and how much analysis you want to do. You can look at implementing either one of them, and they will allow you to continuously improve your process, so that when the next time you are looking for a big transformation, you can go back to the define phase, which I showed you earlier, and you can again go through the entire cycle as it was. So, in conclusion, I would simply like to highlight the few aspects that I have been mentioning throughout this webinar, is the fact that this is not a one shoe fit all scenario. It is not something that you can do over a fortnight. It requires meticulous planning and careful execution so that you can implement Industry 4.0 to transform your traditional manufacturing to a digital transformative enterprise. And it will require quite a lot, ranging from technologies to business models to skills development. Leadership is extremely important in this case. I mean, the senior management would have to step in, and they need to make sure that they manage the changes that are happening. With regards to that change management, again, the most important aspect is you need to consider this as something that will be ongoing. So people need to work on their adoption management rather than simply saying that, well, a change happened, we dealt with it, now we are done. This will be a continuous ongoing process, and people need to look into that.